Top 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Someone just had a birthday, so I logged in the Facebook, which I don't usually do. There's a post which should be right here, but it's doing whatever the fuck it's doing. I tried to leave a comment on here because it's something my aunt reposted, so I gave her my 2 cents. But apparently this is on Instagram, so I tried logging into Instagram to see if I could chime in, naturally, because censorship exists, which means freedom of speech doesn't exist, which also lends itself to what I'm complaining about, and this is obviously working really well.
The United States is the most...
By the way, that should say United States in all capital letters, which proves that whoever did this, knocked this out, doesn't have a clue what they're talking about. I can't leave comments on here, but the topmost says facts, which is absolutely incorrect. I would play this, but only if I could leave my 2 cents on here, because what you're going to hear in here is fucking garbage. It's propaganda. It's insane. So to that point, we'll make this fucking happen. Slowly. A little slower. I'm trying to go back. Can we go back? No. Well, maybe we could do it a different way. Give me another moment, because this is fucking retarded. So I'm going to play that other video for you first in case it disappears, because there's a good chance it will fucking disappear.
Running the United States is the most lawless and dangerous country in the world by far. You cannot believe how much misinformation we get every single day. Because I have advised more than 100 governments around the world. I have seen things with my own eyes. I've seen U.S. CIA coups with my own eyes. Governments lie, but superpowers make super lies. Running the largest war machine in the world, hey, you are going to lie all the time. The entire Iraq war was not because they thought there were weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, shit.
Weapons of mass destruction was the outcome of a focus group inside the Pentagon. How are we going to sell this war to the American people? Who made the decision 2 days ago that ATACMS can shoot deep inside Russia? Another brilliant move. We don't even know if the President of the United States is compos mentis right now. We have a deep state that takes these decisions, not a word of explanation to the American people. It's all lies. And I've seen it all through my life because I've been advisors to prime ministers and to presidents and to central bank governors and to some of the wonderful people on this panel. And
which means he works for all these phony jurisdictions, which is also why he's reaffirming this shit. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's a controlled opposition asset, because by this point he should know what he's talking about, and he clearly does not. That should trouble you. But more importantly, it should trouble you that 6,676 people and my aunt have circulated this. She might be one of those, you never know. I don't know how that translates to Facebook and the, LifeLog 2.0 Instagram algorithm. 18,000 fucking people have circulated this dog shit. So I just created a bullshit text to myself. Let's see if it'll do it. No, it won't let me send it, but we could do it this way. Like I said, there's a will, there's a way, blah, 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 blah. And you've heard me say some of this. Some of you have, or at least some of you should have, and most of you probably haven't. America became a corporation in 1871. 1913, quote-unquote, citizens became debt slaves. This is when the Federal Reserve was established under the pretense of being both voluntary and temporary. Ask yourself, does it still exist? Yeah, it does, and it shouldn't. It never should have. The reason we became debt slaves is because there's no standard to back up the greenbacks. I'm talking about money. There's no standard for the currency. You and I are the value behind the debt in question. Hence, debt slaves. Soon to be social credit slaves, because people aren't doing the right thing. Big surprise. Nothing is for the people by the people, because the Republic fell during the Civil War and was finalized in 1871. 1871 marks when the Organic Act was established, creating the phony jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. If you and I were surrounded by adults, in other words, it was the Republic, not the bullshit that people repeat today, we would have never done that. But the District of Columbia was established and it still exists, which reaffirms what I'm driving at. It might be hard to Google that shit, But it does speak to reason if you use your brain. Most of you won't. Speaking from experience. Usually I just have one dud after another whine at me about their opinions based on popular opinion and hearsay. I said people still talk about government, which means you can Google the seat of government. And it will clearly tell you that it's the District of Columbia, in case you want to think in terms of this phony jurisdiction of government, which does not exist. It's a fucking corporation. Like I said, it was established in 1871. America in all capital letters is a fucking business. Yeah? But if you have to think in terms of a superficial jurisdiction, government, I just did bunny quotes, quotation marks in the air. Google will still tell you that the District of Columbia is the seat of the government. So there's a phony jurisdiction pulling the strings of what should be America, but more importantly, what should be the Republic. But what did I say earlier? The Republic fell during the Civil War and was finalized in when? 1871. Subtract that from the year. And the year is 2024 because the new year doesn't begin until March 21st. But people repeat something contrary to that too. I said the District of Columbia is the bottom of the trilateral city-states. This means the military-industrial complex is the bottom of the trilateral city-states. The middle of the trilateral city-states is the Vatican in Roma. And the top of the food chain is known as the city or the crown. It's once again a city-state. So don't confuse that with the royal family. They're connected, but I am talking about a city-state. I think it's 10 miles by 10 miles wide. And each one of these is symbolized by an obelisk. Unconstitutional taxation is funneled through these channels. Also look up the black nobility in Spain. These are houses of people. Bastards, we put bread on their table. Look up the House of Orange, look up the House of Liechtenstein. These are 2 examples of 7 houses. You can verify this if you put in the time, instead of whining at me. You'll see its symbolism on the shield, or the coat of arms is probably what I should have said, of the royal family. I'm talking about the black nobility in Spain. Those houses that I just complained about. Here's a short list of crown colonies. Do appreciate this. Think of King George back when people first popped off firecrackers. King George took his troops and he left what you would consider the States or America. But he continued to collect unconstitutional taxes on his crown colony because America is a crown colony. It never ceased being a crown colony. People haven't figured that much out, which is terrifying. Every 4th of July, you and I are surrounded by dopes, and it's a reminder when you hear firecrackers pop off. So, the short list of crown colonies include, but are not limited to, America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Verify it. Look it up. You can figure this out. I should also mention what people superficially call presidents are in fact stewards of the District of Columbia. This is something else you can look up. Look up the Title of Nobility Act. It clearly states that presidents aren't allowed to hold official titles like Baron, Duke, and Viscount. So I went on to pop a joke, because it's possibly true too. This may or may not be why Trump named his mentally deficient son Baron. I don't know. Maybe. I said that last bit is speculation. Everything else, if you put in the time, you can verify. It will take time. We live in the age of disinformation and outright propaganda. If you're using the DARPA internet, if you're connected to Wi-Fi, if you're carrying around a cell phone, if you use social media, which is free, which is a red flag, you and I are being manipulated. That's why we have access to these numerous channels of, quote-unquote information, where we can circulate our master's official narratives and further piss in the pond, muddy the waters, fuck shit up. For you and I, not for the better. We're not working towards a revolution, for fuck's sake. People don't have a goddamn clue what's going on. They don't know this much. I guarantee if this is your first time here, all of this information is new to you and you're probably wide-eyed and doubtful. Because that's how it works. Because you aren't spoon-fed shit that fucking reflects reality that you could use as a tool. And this is the most superficial dog shit under the sun and my least favorite subject. But like I said, my aunt posted this stuff. And it frustrates me. Where am I at? It said, you probably won't find some of this in a superficial Google search. What else did I say? It looks like it fucked it up. Either way, you're going to have to be diligent is the point. The last bit of that is poorly worded. Maybe the rest of it was too, but just the same. I taught you something. If you've never hung out here before, you have to think about it. You have to use it as a tool. Don't buy into what I said. Still doubt what I said. Still tackle this with skepticism, many pinches of salt. But connect the dots, and slowly but surely it's going to paint the same fucking picture it painted for me. Because this is what reflects reality, and you're not supposed to know any of this. But, as always, what the fuck do I know? I can't leave comments on here for some reason. I wonder why that is. It must be the bee's knees, you know, the bastion of truth. Clearly everybody in here obviously knows what's what. Let's see what the hidden comments are, because censorship exists, and that shouldn't. The world is a stage. Heard that before, nothing new. That's correct in a way, but also completely wrong. The U.S. in all caps is a Okay, there we go. That's true. What else? For a minute, I was like, is this an old... No, that's not how I word stuff, but it's very similar. Here, I'll try to read the whole thing. Bear with me a moment. But he did use a social engineering sticker, which was written into the algorithm to dumb people down. That's correct in a way, but also completely wrong. The U.S. in all caps is a corporation separate from America. The true republic, America, is built off divine law, God's law. That's bullshit for the most part. The only law, I mean, that does hold water, but that's not what the republic stood for. The politicians and everybody work for the corporation, which is statutes, which is, what is this? Legalities, the undoing of God law. So in fact, America actually, and he didn't capitalize America, is the only place in the world with real law, God law, which is bullshit. It's just been covered up by a de facto evil corporation known as the United States, the District of Columbia, which is partially true, and he should have capitalized both of those, and he didn't. Two different entities. Technically, it's one now. It's cohesive. It's one giant fucking corporation, and it falls under the trilateral city-states in terms of an umbrella scheme, if you will. And there's more to it than that. Those are the superficial steps. I mean, he's on to a little bit of it. A little bit. One de jure real, the other de facto fake. It's cool he spelled it out for people, including myself. Then we got, hang loose in there for some stupid fucking reason. Emphasis on stupid. The U.S. citizen status isn't what you think. It's a ruse to install you in their corporation, which is true because it's a consent-based system. You actually want to be a non-citizen national. Technically, you don't need to live under any of those banners if you and I were surrounded by more adults than morons. The ratio is just disproportionate. Right now, you and I are surrounded by what people would call clowns, but ironically, all the clowns are the people who call other people clowns, typically speaking. I'm using that jargon right now because you've probably seen it online and you're probably familiar with it. Typically, and I just use this because it's different, I'll call people Muppets. And I'm censored on TikTok when I do that. It's the same concept. But all the lemmings out there, that most people would usually call, sheep. What do? They echo the same thing. Right now, they're all echoing, nice try, Diddy. How many times have you seen that in a comment section? Is that an original thought? Does that show that you and I are surrounded by the best and the brightest? Does that prove that you and I are surrounded by people who have a creative spark? They're calling upon free will? They're conscious in any form or way? Or are they walking in lockstep and acting like all of the other carbon copies out there? Because the last bit that I just said is absolutely true, which reaffirms everything I've complained about and why most people do not know any of this. Because it's not easy to come by. In other words, if I were to ask you a question, and this is something I've done on YouTube, most people out there can't answer the question because they can't Google it. And that should terrify you. But, as always, what the fuck do I know? Let's see how many people are following this account, and I bet you it's thousands of people. What a surprise. And it's because they're lying to people, they're misleading people, they're shopping around polarizing propaganda. Flat out misdirection. They're shopping around the very thing that this video allegedly is speaking against. Take that to heart. What the fuck do I know? If you sat through this, thanks for hearing me out. I encourage you, I urge you, in other words, to take the time, point for point, build up what I said in here. Because I wasted my time and energy, my breath, trying to fucking help you.